Hey everyone and welcome back. A question that's been on my mind recently is, where would I want to live in the Kingdom Hearts universe? Which world would I be happiest to spend a majority of my time in? And how feasible would it be to exist there on a permanent basis? It's an interesting question, so today I want to talk through 10 Kingdom Hearts worlds and rank them by how much I'd like to live there. This list is dedicated to Kingdom Hearts original worlds. I think Disney worlds would clutter this too much. And let's be real, they're essentially a question of, would X Disney movie be nice to be a part of? That's more its own thing, so I'd rather stick to original worlds. Sorry Walt, maybe next time. Also, I need to establish something for this to make sense. As we know, some Kingdom Hearts worlds are stuck in a permanent time of day, like Traverse Town. This can be quite off-putting when deciding a world to settle down in, so I've elected to give myself a bit of freedom. In this hypothetical situation, I'd have to spend most of my time in the world, but a holiday/vacation every now and then, that's allowed. I think this is a good balance. I'm not trapped in an eternal time, but neither am I allowed to freely hop between worlds, which would defeat the point of living in them. You guys can, of course, set whatever limitations you like if you pose this question to yourselves. This is just what I'm going with. Oh, we also have to assume we're not going to get killed by Heartless or Nobodies. That kind of ruins the point of this too. And I think that's enough rules. Let's get started with this list. We're beginning with the most depressing and dark place on the top 10. There's plenty of miserable worlds in Kingdom Hearts. The Keyblade Graveyard, End of the World, the Realm of Darkness. These are all places that wouldn't be fun to live in. At least not to me. Maybe you'd enjoy sitting in a dusty badlands surrounded by decrepit keyblades. I guess I can't judge, but to me that sounds more depressing than playing KH3 level 1 critical with pro codes. And some worlds are just too small, like Exposition Tower or the Mirage Arena, far too claustrophobic. The best of the worst in the case of misery is the world that never was. We can see from the bedrooms and days that the castle is at least habitable. It's sterile and cold and moody and mostly empty, but it is possible to live there. I guess the view is cool, and the world itself has quite a mysterious and unique atmosphere. Perhaps we could live in an apartment in the Dark City, who knows? If you're a fan of city life, this world might do it for you, other than the fact it's devoid of actual life. I could see walking the streets of the Dark City being fun, exploring the weird and wonderful buildings, standing on top of Memory Skyscraper because you want to look edgy. Maybe don't wear a blindfold though, it seems dangerous. Oh, and perhaps we need to keep an eye out for trucks swerving off the road. That seems to be a problem here. But while I'm a fan of dark and mysterious places like this, it's all a bit too samey and depressing for me. I wouldn't want to spend most of my time here, and let's not forget being stuck in eternal night. Those vacations would need to come more frequently than I've allowed, so for that reason this world is down at number 10. Of the depressing worlds, it's probably the best option to live in, so managed to sneak into the bottom spot, but that's about it. Now this world is definitely a step up. We have nature for a start, vast swathes of rock pillars and greenery surrounding the central area. The castle, or whatever you'd call this building, clearly has plenty of resources. It's habitable, there are bedrooms, we see that with Ventus. It seems a pleasant place to live. The surrounding land is harder to gauge. I mean, the terrain looks a bit treacherous. It wouldn't catch me trying to climb one of those pillars. I'm not sure what else is out there, and that's why it's only at number 9 on this list. I feel like it'd be quite boring to live here. If you're a Keyblade wielder who can come and go as they please for training, fine. But going by the rule I set, this place just doesn't offer much to me. The central building is cool, and the landscape is dramatic looking, but it doesn't scratch any particular itch. Well, I will say I'd rather live in this version than the altered form. Castle Oblivion would be a sad place to live, worse than the world that never was, and quite creepy too. Besides, all those white walls would definitely give me a headache. So yeah, Land of Departure is a pretty meh option. Not terrible, just okay. Am I cheating by including this world? Maybe? Well, I'm just going to say no and include it anyway. This is a special place where time doesn't matter. It's used to help Kairi and Lee train for their inevitable battle at the Keyblade Graveyard. I'm not sure it's all that good at its job, but hey, it's a lovely looking place. Given the time doesn't matter thing, I'm assuming the forest is locked during this sunset, which does mark it down a bit. And yeah, a simple forest with, I assume, very little in the way of man-made influence might get a bit boring, like with the Land of Departure, but it ranks higher simply because of location. I really like forests. While out on the walk, I'm the sort of person who will scan my surroundings for climbable trees and then see how high I can safely get. Plus, they're just a calming, peaceful place to be. I'd rather be stuck in a samey forest than a samey city like the world that never was. So I think that explains why this beats it. Of course, the downsides are obvious. It's very lonely. I mean, I like solitude, but not all the time. Just when people are irritating me. We all need an escape, right? But escaping that much and becoming one with nature, yeah, that's too far for me. There's some modern comforts I'd need to keep. Quadratum seems like an easy high ranker. I mean, it's the closest thing we have to our own Earth in Kingdom Hearts, along with some Disney worlds. Now, we don't know the specifics of how it works, but it looks to be pretty much modern day Tokyo, so I imagine it has plenty of those comforts I mentioned. I'm not sure how much else there is besides the city. This could be a can I say something else for the world that never was? This is getting tiring. Tuatanua. Okay, that doesn't work. Anyway, yes. There may be no countryside to speak of here, which would be a shame, but I guess there's parks and things. This is a potential point against it. Then again, the Nameless Star mentions Quadrilateral having the most skyscrapers of any city she knows, which implies other cities, which implies space between those cities, here in this unreality. Even if that's true, we're talking about the city itself, and I wouldn't be at home living in such a crowded place like this. It's just a hive of anxiety triggers. Really, the main drawback is this. We're presenting this hypothetical situation about living in a Kingdom Hearts world, with all sorts of cool places to choose from. So do I really want to rank a more down-to-earth familiar place that highly? That's a bit boring. It's a tricky one because we've only glimpsed at this place. There's still a lot we don't know. I expect there's more to Quadriceps than what we've been shown so far. And that's why I'm placing it here at number 7. I'm not sure how much sense this makes to you guys, but that's where it's going for now. Here we have our first instance of somewhere we know to be well balanced. There's the humble, quaint town itself. It looks pretty for sure, though not hugely appealing to me. But there are confirmed rural areas, this beautiful hillside of dandelions proving one example. This is good news for the world. And here's the biggest draw of all, this world has water. More specifically, it has a sea, a coastline, even a lighthouse. You'll notice as we climb this list that having some sort of sea or ocean is a big win in my books. I've lived by the sea all my life. I love it. I can't imagine living far from it. Luckily here in the UK we're never too far from it. But I'm getting off track. You're here for Kingdom Hearts, not my life story. Daybreak Town is very well rounded. A population, a quiet town, water, hillsides, cataclysmic events that destroy the entire world. Okay, that last one isn't ideal, but we have to assume we're not going to experience that one ourselves. There's two major reasons this place doesn't rank higher. One, as I said, the town isn't too appealing. I prefer other towns in Kingdom Hearts. And secondly, but at a similar point, I don't have any real attachment to this place. I haven't played Union Cross and I have very little interest in it, even the story. So this world doesn't mean as much to me as others in the series do, and that's why Daybreak Town can't break the top 5. Hey, we're at that part of the video where people have to listen to my pronunciation of Traverse Town. Traverse Town. You enjoying this? Do you like Traverse Town? Well, anyway, Town of Traversal is number 5 on my list. That might be a little surprising. I thought you loved this world, Nova. Well, I do. It's cozy as hell. I mean, hell isn't cozy. Or maybe it is. The warm glow of the town's lights, the sleepy and quiet vibe, the general atmosphere, these all contribute to that cozy feeling. Not only that, but Traverse Town is the first hub world in Kingdom Hearts, and for many of us holds a special place in our, well, you know, it feels like home. So of course it'll be a great place to call home and live in. It's also shown to have plenty of shops and other buildings to suit our needs. Need to de-stress? Visit the Dalmatian's house. Want to buy a gizmo so you can beat Ariel's collection and make her feel stupid? Go take a look in the gizmo shop. And hey, if the first game's locations are a little too small scale for you, Perhaps instead you could hop into the DDD version and visit the more city-like areas of the 4th and 5th districts, or the Fountain Plaza. Traverse Town is an interesting and varied place. Okay, then why is it only number 5 here? Well, you may have already figured this out, but the world lacks a few things. Daylight, for one. The eternal night here is definitely, let's say, softer than that of the Dark City. It's a lot less spooky, but still it might get tiresome. Then you've got the lack of nature or any kind of body of water. These are important boxes that aren't checked. If you plonked Traverse Town inside another world like Radiant Garden, that would be absolutely ideal, but as it stands, it's just held back somewhat. Yes, I know this is technically the same world as Daybreak Town, but they're vastly different in design. I think it's pretty fair to rank them separately, and hey, if you disagree, you can always write a comment and I'll gladly ignore it. Scala ad Caelum is called a town by Xehanort, and the architecture definitely has that feel. It's like a fantastical version of a Mediterranean town, what with all the white buildings and of course an expansive sea. It's pretty huge for a town, admittedly. Just look at all these far off islands. While I'm not a fan of living in large populated areas, there's still a lot to love here. One, it's a seaside location. I love the sea, we know this by now. This is one of those worlds where I can just imagine how it feels. The warmth from the sunlight, but a perfect breeze drifting through the streets, carrying with it that sea air smell. Hell, there's a district of the main island called the Breezy Quarter. This place is full of cozy and charming spots. Little gathering places on the roofs, this tunnel with its string lights, I love that. There's plenty of signs of life here too. A cafe, markets, and even adverts by the way of posters. I feel like there'd be lots to keep you occupied in this world, including musical performances. And the sea itself, I'd love to take a boat out and sail freely between the islands. Cable cars are a defining feature here, but I'd rather go by boat if possible. Scala's major downside is the apparent lack of nature. It has some parks, but from what I can tell, no rural areas. Maybe there's some islands out there that aren't stacked with buildings, I don't know. And because I don't know, I can't rate the world any higher than this. Number 4 is a comfortable spot though, because this place has a damn vibe, and I vibe with it. Here we are, the top 3 worlds. Coming in third is Radiant Garden, specifically the Birth by Sleep and Cage 3 variants of the world. Cage 2's Radiant Garden is still under redevelopment, and to be honest has a kind of depressing appearance, not to mention that everything outside the town is blue rock. I like blues rock, but blue rock? Not very interesting. Hollow Bastion in Cage 1 is awe-inspiring, mysterious, and that library would be cool to hang out in. But it's basically just a castle, and it'd get pretty lonely, not to mention a little creepy living in it. Also, I'd get tired of all these lifts, if I'm being honest. Just give me some stairs, damn it. So we're left with Radiant Garden the way it's supposed to be. A big old castle town, and Kingdom Hearts loves those. With this world we have pretty much all the boxes ticked. It's got life, a community, it has water, plenty of that. There's even rural areas outside the town with far off islands and mountains to explore. It's like Scala ad Caelum, but on a smaller scale and not completely urban. Radiant Garden is also a very interesting place, with a lot of background history and mystery to dig into. Truly though, I think the main draw of this world is simply how livable it is. It's pretty medieval in design, but it does have technology, some even quite advanced, as we see with Ansem's study. It has shops, houses, gardens obviously. It seems to be well managed, a good water supply, and a reactor to provide power. I don't know what Ansem's policies are as king, hopefully the taxes aren't too bad, but all in all, a very habitable, normal sort of world, with a chance to escape to some countryside if needs be. I'm sure it isn't surprising to see this world so high up on the list. When I asked the question on YouTube, this was the most popular answer, though it was fairly close. Seems an endless sunset isn't enough to deter people from wanting to live here. In fairness, late afternoon is probably one of the best times of day to be stuck at. Better than night, better than morning, I'll take it. Other than that, a lot of what I said about Radiant Garden applies here. Just Twilight Town does it better. For one, I think the town itself is more appealing. It's less medieval, more modern, more comfortable. It's a bit like Traverse Town in that there's a wide variety of colours and designs on the buildings, which keeps things interesting. Another similarity is the general coziness of this world. It's very inviting. Twilight Town has a relaxing and chill atmosphere that's represented in many ways, even having a piece of music named Lazy Afternoons. The town is also modern enough to provide some familiarity to us dwellers of the 21st century. Roxas's room even has a boxy, stylized television. Stop buying cheap gaming chairs. Instead, get a Moon and Star office chair. Your back will thank you. In Cage 3, the Tram Common has even gained a cinema, though the movies on display are somewhat outdated. And now there's a fine dining restaurant too, with meals devised by Remy, who, in this critic's opinion, is nothing short of the finest chef in all of the realm between. The town also has good public transport with its tram and train systems, and it seems pretty easy to get a job here. No loud roads or busy city centres, it's all nice and quiet. It's perfect for someone like me. I've talked about the Sunset Terrace and hill areas to death on this channel. Frankly, ran out of ways to say I love it, so yeah, I love it. I definitely want to live here on the outskirts. And it gets even better because Twilight Town has countryside, it has a forest, and best of all, it has a beach, which means it has a sea or some body of water. This world just wants me to live in it. It's almost perfect. Almost, because the endless sunset is the main drawback, but it could be worse. Still, it didn't make number 1, and by now I'm sure most people have probably figured out what did. Surprise, surprise, the most sea-themed original world in Kingdom Hearts is the one I'd like to live in. It's funny that many characters felt this world to be too small, too limiting, and wanted to leave it. Notably, Riku and Xehanort both sought out to escape from their prison. I can understand their feelings, but the rules I've set state that an occasional holiday is allowed, and we don't need a giant orb of darkness devouring us to achieve that. Even if the world is a bit small, it's still the one I'd love to be a part of most. You've got the ocean, of course, and this is no cold northern sea like I'm used to. No, these are warmer, tropical waters. That's a huge plus. Then the Play Island, well, that seems more for the kids, I guess. Though even as an adult, running that obstacle course on the cove does seem kind of fun, I can't lie. But the biggest draw is the main island. I spoke a lot about this recently on my top 10 places we can't go to videos, so maybe just watch that if you haven't. I don't want to repeat myself too much. The town has such a beautiful aesthetic though. Even as 2D background props, it's still great. Looks to be a decent size, but not too large, not a city by any means. And perhaps a little more spread out, more connected to nature than Twilight Town is. The built-up area is nestled against a mountain, so there's hiking opportunities abound. Excellent. Where I'd love to live is the section of the town by the shore, because, well, the closer to the sea the better. Here you get spectacular sea views, especially during the sunset. Oh, and on that note, Destiny Islands is in the Realm of Light and isn't locked to a specific time. We see it during the day, evening, and night. As far as technology goes, I imagine Destiny Islands is a little more primitive than Twilight Town. Sora is pretty bad with computers and doesn't seem to have any experience, so I doubt they're common here. There's evidence of electronics, I guess, with the signpost lights and the lamp in Sora's room. Oh, and the transmission tower pylon things in the distance. I assume that's what these are anyway, just made of wood rather than metal. They could be something else, but I'm not sure what, so I'm just gonna assume they're for cables, for electricity. Destiny Islands is not without modern comforts. I guess there's a couple more downsides. Storms seem very possible here, and I don't just mean apocalyptic darkness storms, but normal storms you'd get on the coast, especially for a hot climate. And that as well, hot climate. I'm not all that great with the heat. It often gives me a headache. Seriously, between that and hay fever, summer is just paracetamol season to me. Although if I lived in Destiny Islands all the time, I guess I'd be used to the heat, so this might be a moot point. The cozy feeling of a cold winter might be a shame to miss, but I think every choice on this list has its upsides and downsides that can't really be avoided. This world's upsides are so strong for me, it's enough to secure the number 1 spot. It's such a shame we haven't seen this world more, because I can only imagine how beautiful the mainland would look in modern graphics. Maybe one day, who knows. For now, we can but dream. And we're done. Those are my top 10 original worlds to live in. I expect there's a lot of commonality between people with this. Some worlds are just more pleasant than others. But that doesn't mean everyone thinks the same. I know there's some staunch World That Never Was fans out there. So feel free to comment which world or worlds you'd like to live in most. It'd be interesting to see what appeals to people most when deciding a home. It's pretty fun to ask questions like this, imagining ourselves in the universe of the franchise we like. It can also be quite tricky. It took me longer than expected to decide on this ranking. So as usual, gotta play the algorithm game. There's a subscribe button, liking the video, sharing it, I guess. Twitch for live streams, a few other things in the description, you know how this works. Stay tuned for more videos, and as always, thanks for watching.